Yes, love's a secret weapon. Yeah!
Hi, I'm Donna Loren.
And I'm Dr. Adam Gerace.
And you are listening to Love's a Secret Weapon podcast.
Well, listeners, welcome back to Love's a Secret Weapon podcast. I'm Dr. Adam Gerace. As we round out 2023, Donna and I are joined on this episode by our special guest, author, journalist and podcaster, Natalie Zett. Natalie is the author of Flower in the River, A Family Tale Finally Told, a work of historical fiction that draws on Natalie's real-life family history. A narrative set in the present and the past, it tells the story of intergenerational trauma and the ties that bind us across generations. At the centre of the story is the death of Natalie's real-life great aunt, Martha Pfeiffer, who perished in 1915 on the SS Eastland, a ship docked on the Chicago River. Despite the loss of 844 passengers and crew, that story has largely been untold and relegated to history. Natalie's introduction to the story of her great aunt was itself like a detective novel that she had to piece together in order to bring out of the shadows this story. As Natalie has said in her writing, the quest for ancestral knowledge often dovetails into an exploration of the self. It's a profound realization that the forces that shape those before us continue to pulse through our very veins. Natalie feels that through the process of researching our history, as she writes, these emotions spanning generations serve as a bridge, linking us to our ancestors in a deeply personal way. Their dreams, battles and hopes resonate with our own, powerfully reminding us that at the core, the human experience remains unchanged. We really believe in understanding our past to move forward in the present, and so Donna and I were delighted to talk it over with Natalie and to find out how our podcast inspired Natalie to start her own Flower in the River, the podcast, available on Apple, Spotify, and wherever you get your podcasts. Happy listening.
I say, you know what my name is. Last night, I had a dream. You were in it, I was in it with you. Everyone that I knew, and everyone that you know was in my dream. I saw a man
Hello,
Oh,
Natalie.
good.
Are you?
Hi.
Oh my gosh. Okay, I have to just let me just
Welcome.
fangirl out just for a moment. 2, 3. I'm good. I can't believe this. Thank you guys. You're so
Oh, it's
kind.
wonderful, honey.
How's the?
This is a time to share stories.
Well, you are such a storyteller, ma'am, and boy, I tell you, you've inspired this woman to just do it.
I am so happy to hear that you took the initiative. For our listeners on Love's a Secret Weapon podcast, this is Natalie, and Natalie has been inspired by our kind of methodology of telling stories and reading my memoir. And then, of course, Dr. Gerace coming in and analyzing everything with me and talking it over. What is your procedure that when you decided to write a memoir, or did you, is it an autobiography or a
No.
biography, or what is it?
Well, basically, I've already been, Donna, a journalist for lots of years, and I was handed, all kinds of things. I've always been involved in the creative arts in one way or the other, but my main thing has been writing. But about right after my dad died in 96, 97, around that time, my mother's sister, who I thought was Jed, in Chicago, sent me this huge bio on this
Whoa.
branch of the family.
Oh my goodness.
And so I was already writing, and I didn't know. I've listened to your family stories, so I know you understand about splintered families. And this one was, both my parents had severe traumas with awful things happen with both their parents, respective parents. And so I got this story, and I was fairly not estranged from my immediate family, but I left Cleveland because
You do a Randy Newman song. Cleveland,
City of Lights,
lights, city of magic.
burn on
Okay.
Big River.
Oh dear, Cuyahoga River, burn on.
Donna and I are going to do a CD, and we're going to the greatest hits.
Absolutely.
Now, Donna, you got to do polka varieties for me, okay? I mean, it's polka time, folks. Anyway, sorry, making fun of my ethnicity again. Here I go. But yeah, we are just a fun bunch. So yeah, the river caught on fire. The city went bankrupt, and then I moved from there. I went to school in Ann Arbor, but I was living in inner city Detroit for a while, so that was interesting as well. But I had to get away from my immediate family, and when I was younger, and I moved up to St. Paul, and just because I didn't know anybody here, so I thought this grooving along, but then Dad died, and it just upended my world. We were closer by then, all of us. And then this document came from my mom's supposedly dead sister, and I'm reading this thing, and one of the first things I saw was that my grandmother, who died when my mom was 3, this other sister of my grandmother's who died when she was 19 on a shipwreck that killed 844 people. And I thought, now I grew up with Chicago envy, Donna and Dr. Adam.
Yeah.
So I knew everything about Chicago. I mean, gangsters and all this other cool stuff. I thought, why can't I live in a cool city? And I'd been to Chicago a number of times, and I always felt a familiarity with it. But a shipwreck that killed 844 in 1915, and very few people knew about it. And that was the first part of the shock. My dad's dead. I'm dealing with this. I was like, who am I? And then the second thing that was equally shocking was when I started looking for other people, because I'm a journalist. I thought, I got to find somebody who might have known about this and whatever. I started seeing other names. And long story short, my great-great-grandmother, she immigrated to a little village about an hour and a half from where I had moved. So yeah, you're saying, yeah, it was that kind of thing. So all of a sudden, it was one of those things. I don't know if you guys ever watched the old Charmed series, but there's a scene where the first sister, Shannon Doherty's character, is killed off, and then you open to the next set of episodes, I think season 3 or 4, and there's another sister, because they have to have anothere sister to reconstitute the power of 3. And this girl doesn't know who she is. She's in this office, and then this newspaper clipping of this obituary flops down out of nowhere, and she's working in an office. She picks up her coat and purse, and she says, "I have to go." And it was kind of like that for me. I thought, well, I guess I've got to go to Chicago. And then it was like, it was a research project at first, but it soon turned into, I don't want to say an obsession, but it was like it got under my skin. And I thought, this woman is the key to something or other.
You were drawn
And
to
you
it.
Go
just
ahead. Okay.
and you had to put this down, pen and paper, and then recently start your own podcast telling the story.
Well, what I did was it took a long time to put the story together, Donna and Dr. Adam, because there was so little known about it. And then I never wanted to write a book, okay? And I never really wanted to do a memoir. I still don't want to do that because no one would believe some of this stuff. But this seemed really important. And I thought there was a third thing that happened too. I found out that my grandmother, who worked for Western Electric, and people who don't know, Western Electric was the big, telephone conglomerate and communications, everything. Western Electric was the Silicon Valley of the 1900s, and then probably until 1920s, 30s, wherever. And that's where my grandmother worked, and she had tickets to this yearly picnic, and she gave them to her sister.
And that's how SS ended up on the Eastland was the name of the boat.
Yes, all these people. Yeah, the ship was already problematic, and I just translated a whole bunch of articles from the Polish newspaper at the time, 1915, and the images are even more horrific, and I don't think anyone's ever seen them, and they're going to see them now. So I thought, enough of the secrecy, enough of not talking about this. This is just, and it affects all of us. So it's like it's led me to all these things. But what I realized, Donna and Dr. Adam, is if my grandmother got on that thing with 844 people, with our family luck, none of us would be here. I thought, I owe you one. And I've never felt obligated to my family before, but I thought it literally changed the way I thought about everything. And so in a sense, I became like I learned how to, I didn't really know. I knew how to research, I knew how to write, but this kind of writing I didn't know. And it seemed as if, here's where it got a little spooky. The first time I went down to Chicago, it's about a 7-hour drive from Minneapolis, St. Paul. And I thought, well, I'm just going to break up the drive. And I stayed in a hotel in Wisconsin, and things started happening in the hotel, like noises and weird things and stuff like that. And I'm going to backpedal, having grown up with my dad's side was my favorite side. We're let's see, Romani, Ashkenazi Jewish, Carpatho-Rusin, which is also what Andy Warhol is. And so that's a fun bunch. They're always telling fortunes, contacting the dead, all this stuff. So I grew up with that, but I thought, I had a hard enough time with life. I thought, I don't need this weird stuff on my plate either. But I thought, oh my God, I remembered it from when I was a child. I thought, oh my God, this was happening to me now. And I thought, what did I do? But I thought, I've got to see this through. And so I drove down to Chicago to try to find a grave in a cemetery I had never been to before. I parked, and I had no idea what I was going to do. It was Labor Day weekend, and I thought, how am I going to find my aunt's grave? And I walked around for 45 minutes, and then I came back to my car, and I didn't realize I'd parked right in front of it.
Wow.
So stuff like that was happening. And again, I know you guys don't know me, but this is not how I tried to appear fakey, sophisticated, so people will take me somewhat seriously.
Yeah.
But I thought, it was just like, there were so many things like that.
You're just spilling the naked truth, Natalie.
Thank you, dear Donna. I know this, about that.
And it was like secrets are just, secrets are not the truth, is really what we're striving for. And I think, that's what's given you the courage to actually not, just to take this journey and to trust it and to, Adam and I talk about surrender quite a bit, and just surrendering to, how you feel in your heart, and trust your guides that are invisible, but listening to your inner voice and letting that take you where you need to go, and trusting it all the way through a crazy hotel listen, sister, we may not have ever met, but you have a sister and brother right here.
Look at us down here, making all this fuss. We know better than that. Only ignorance shall destroy us. Some are out of control. Most of us are wanderers. Which way will we go? Which way will we go? Love it away. Love it away. Love it away. Love it away. Listen to your heart when you are lonely. Listen to the quiet voice inside you. Listen to your heart when you are lonely, telling you which way to go. Should I turn right? Should I turn left? We've all the answers inside us. Should I turn right? Should I turn left? You've all the answers inside. Love it away. 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 Listen to the lump in your throat tell you something it wants to say. I know it hurts, it doesn't have to. Listen to your heart. Love it away. Love it away. Love it away. Love it away. Love it Love it away. Listen to your heart.
You know, I know that I was thinking about you and I thought, what is it about this woman? I mean, besides the fact my dad used to say you were the only one who could sing in the Beach movies. Okay, so that one can sing.
Fabulous.
And he wasn't wrong about that. But when I saw you again years later, this is how I found your podcast. I thought, what is it about this woman's voice? I mean, I grew up kind of around the entertainment field with my dad being a performer, but it was something emotional. Yeah, he was. You were doing Hank Williams. You referred to Hank Williams quite a bit. My dad was of that vintage, and he would do Hank Williams songs on his radio show back in the 50s. Yeah, in Johnstown, Pennsylvania. And my dad was the only singing Rusin Slovak cowboy ever. So my dad just, we're an inventive crew. We just make up stuff. So he had a radio show, but he was also weird, and I inherited his hearing, unfortunately. So there's certain things I respond to, but it was the emotional quality of your voice. And it was also, you were 15, 16. And I also wondered what you brought in with you, not just to have that voice, but also to survive your life. Because I've listened to your podcast and I thought, holy smokes. I mean, and to be so generous and wonderful the way you are to people, to all of us.
Well, I mean, I think the three of us in this moment are examples of opening up and allowing the stories, not just from our lives, but from our ancestors to unfold. And it's part, to me anyway, Natalie and Dr. Adam, it's part of, excuse me, but I'm going to just say for the last, several thousand years of patriarchal dominance, of this systematic control of fragmenting, each one of our beings coming in with a capacity to love and to listen and to be productive and to be creative and to be co-creative and connected with spirit and, to be in love with life. And suddenly this, this energy like came in like a deep fog to put a damper on our ability to find that holism that's within all of us. So here we've been for so many generations, many generations of fragmentation. And there's an energy out there now that's helping us connect the dots, connect the pieces. I've often seen, my life as pieces of puzzles that don't quite fit, and they're starting to touch on all the edges, and the cracks are coming together. And of course, that's a Leonard Cohen song. But anyway,
yes, yes it is.
The idea of holism is something that goes beyond veganism or any kind of organic lifestyle. It's really about coming together and feeling whole within yourself and trusting so incredibly, so implicitly that you can say the truth without judgment, without fear. And, and the mystery of life starts making sense because, suddenly you don't have this lack of connection to, the beyond and to source and, and to this earth, which, helps the old, patriarchal society to control us. So, this is what we're going through now. And I think that's what's giving the three of us, and hopefully, I believe the majority of all life on this planet, whether you speak, and I'm hoping that many more people will have the courage to speak their truth rather than to know their truth and to keep it within and be silent.
Whoa. Yes, ma'am. Preach on.
That's a lot to unpack. And
that's good.
As Donna, as you were speaking, I was wondering, Natalie, when you talk about this family story, the story of your great aunt Martha, who was on the Eastland ship, why? Before we get into the family intricacies, why do you think from your research that this ship we don't know about? Most of us have never heard of this. That's 844 people in 1915, 3 years after the Titanic. But yet I was never aware of this until I came across your podcast and your book called Flower in the River. Why was it covered up, or at least forgotten? Was it deliberately forgotten? Do you know?
I don't know that there's, for the last 25 years, Dr. Adam and Donna, I have been trying to figure this out. The easy thing to say is that the class of people that was on all four of my grandparents were from Eastern Europe, and they immigrated here, the late 1800s, early 1900s. They were laborers. Grandpa was a coal miner and he died, and great grandpa was scalded and all this. I mean, so basically it's like we were throwaway people. And I think that's a lot of it. I don't want to say that that's entirely it, but had someone quote unquote noteworthy been on board, wealthy been on board, but these were people who, the other thing that's happened when I was reading the Polish newspapers and translating them, what I read was these people were threatened with losing their jobs. They had to go on this picnic in order to create a photo op and create publicity for Western Electric. So also too, there was that oppressed nature of the thing. And honestly, I think Western Electric, handed out money afterwards, but I think they didn't want the publicity. And then what was happening in Europe at the time, precursor to World War I, there were a lot of things. But for those people, my mom's sister said, what could they have done, Natalie? I said, why didn't they protest? Because I'm always, out there running my mouth and stuff like that. But she said there were no workers' rights. There was a lot of, labor movement going on. But they really didn't have any choice other than to keep working, the survivors. And what I'm doing now is just looking at these families who don't have anyone to speak for them and just saying, okay, guys, girls, which one of you wants me to do a little profile about you and your life,
Wow.
because I mean, I've got a headache from doing all that Polish stuff, but by the same
Mm.
token, it's worth it because they really nail it. They talk about, Donna, you're talking about truth. These people go for it. And I thought, I hope my podcast doesn't get banned because I'm going to read what they wrote. And they were unflinching, and they just let them have it with both barrels.
Well,
And it's like, we matter,
you just keep putting it out there, and
Yes, ma'am.
you know what I'm saying? You just keep telling the truth and aligning with that. And whomever joins with you, will hopefully be supported by the universe. And if you take some blows, there's always lessons,
Always.
right?
Oh, absolutely. No, and I'm used to that as well. I
And
know,
I mean,
friends say that.
recently oh boy, I've been taking a deep dive into, shadow work and
Yes.
and getting to kind of a threshold of starting to, like the players that are obvious in your life, and then the ones that are kind of faceless, but there's an energy and there might be a name from
Ooh, yeah.
from somewhere in your history, and whatever energy they've had that has felt a form of persecution or condemnation, I'm starting to line them up and look at their faces etherically and say thank you.
Good.
It's interesting when we're talking about that idea of these generations, just as you were saying that, Donna, I was thinking of this idea, and we've spoken about this before, and particularly, Natalie, what you're saying, this idea of where your ancestors came from as well and what they would have experienced. And Donna, you've spoken about that too. And certainly my family came from nothing in Italy. They were very poor, and people carry through generations those stories as well as those experiences, and whether we want to call that an intergenerational trauma or something like that. Is that something, Natalie, that you're particularly, I guess, resonate with as part of your work in researching both your ancestors' situation, but also in writing your book, Flower in the River, which is a story. It draws on your experience, of course, and this experience of the Eastland ship, but it also is a family story. Do you relate to that idea of how
absolutely.
people bring things forward, that our ancestors we've got the same blood as them that's running through them? I think you wrote that in a couple of your pieces. Yeah.
No, you're, very perceptive. You're right. I think that I didn't believe it before, but when I saw, it made my mother make sense. It made the whole fragmented life make sense. My grandmother, who gave her the tickets, she died when my mom was just 3, and then they said of a broken heart and guilt.
Yeah.
And so it's just like it traveled down. And my mother didn't have a mother, yet she was actually, even though we used to get into it, she was an amazing mother. But that trauma came down, through us. And then my dad's father was injured badly in a mining accident, so badly that they couldn't treat the gangrene properly. And his pain was so bad that he hung himself.
Oh,
wow.
So the first time he tried to do it, my dad and his brother found him. So my dad had that. So my dad had no father.
Yeah.
And again, the Slovak population at that point in Johnstown, Pennsylvania, we're talking poor. Okay. They had these fraternal organizations that would take care for their other people, but there was nothing. So Dad was in bad shape. That's why he picked up the guitar and would sell himself as a singer and a cowboy. And it was like, oh my God, Dad. But I have that too. It's like, yeah, I can do that. There's this weird confidence that we have too that comes out of that trauma, because the trauma forced our hand. And certainly with this situation with my aunt, I realized she might be dead, but she is not silent. And she's been pushing me, I think, probably for most of my life. And also the thing about talking back to the trauma, talking back to the tragedy. And I thought, as long as I'm alive, I'm going to bring a light on this thing, whatever it is. And ironically, my aunt and the others from the Eastlander, many of them, are buried in a place called Justice, Illinois, outside of Chicago. The irony of it.
Kind of perfect,
and I thought,
really.
Yeah, so all I can do, like Donna has been doing and you've been doing, tell these stories.
Why, hello. I'm Natalie Zett, and welcome to Flower in the River. Flower in the River is a podcast about a book I wrote of the same name. And that book is about the Eastland disaster that took place in 1915 in Chicago, and how that long ago tragedy affected my family for generations. I'll talk about writing and family history and what to do when the supernatural comes into your life when you're innocently doing a family history research project. Come on and let's have some fun with this.
I'm so glad you guys do this, because that'll resonate. As a genealogist, it's like we're all future dead people, right? Long after we're not here.
I love that. That's
we're
great.
not here. That's your story will live on. And it's not just, the celebrity is just amazing. Your talent is beyond, but it's the fact that you're able to take all that yuck that happened to you and turn it into this, like really, I hate to say it because it's a cliche, but a beacon of light. And it's healing. It was healing for me, because I was going through a lot when I was putting the book out. My mom had just died, and I was holding on to that podcast of yours. I thought, maybe I need to do a podcast about my book, because I was on a lot of podcasts, including Coast to Coast, and people were interested in the book.
Oh.
And I thought, why? I mean, I didn't think anybody would. I didn't write it. I don't like attention, actually. I'm not, my father, just like, I'll get on stage and do my thing, but then please don't talk to me. I don't want to, I'm really introverted. I am. But it's like the thing has a life of its own. And one of my closest friends gave it to her dad as he was dying, and it provided comfort. And I thought, it's unleashed in the world. That's all I can say. And it's got a life of its own. And I am now the curator of this thing. And I have no idea. My aunt, who was killed, always wanted to travel all over the world. And every time I check the stats on Squarespace as to where it's going, it's been all over the world. And it's just like,
So
and it doesn't make sense to me.
You've given her that life that she couldn't have, and perhaps your book reaches people because it is a fundamental story that, while you've used the backdrop of this disaster, it's ultimately a family story. And I think what you're saying about Donna's story, this idea of that connecting with you, because ultimately that's also a story of as Donna was saying, coming out of the shadows and understanding ourselves and making friends with those. It's interesting, Donna, that you were saying that, because as you know, I had a good friend in Chicago, a professor.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, Professor Rosalind Cartwright, who lived to be 98, and she did dream research. So her research was about looking at how we process what's gone on in the day at nighttime. And she used to have a dream from the time she was a young girl. She had this harlequin. So what would you call a harlequin for people? Like almost like a clown, but not quite.
Yeah, a clown. Yeah, like the two-sided with the dark and light, and that sort of thing.
Yes, and she would have that, and throughout her life, that figure continued to be in her dreams. And when she was a child, it was kind of a mischievous, figure, kind of a forewarning or something. And then as she sort of became an adult, it was this figure, I guess, who would sometimes taunt her when she was having dreams about her work, because she felt she was, a woman in a very man-centric, world. But at the end of her life, she had been with that figure all her life. And towards the end of her life, in I think the last year or so, in her dreams, that harlequin was no longer that person that figure trying to bring her down, but it had actually made friends with her, and it had actually become almost like a friend. That it had taken a lifetime, but she had been able to, whatever had happened, she had worked through that, so that this figure of fear didn't have to be anymore. Yeah.
Whoa. That's so powerful. I mean, you're talking about the shadow, Donna and Dr. Adam. I
Mhm.
mean, I did a lot of Jungian studies when I was an
Mm.
undergrad, and
Mhm.
one of my writer friends just wrote a book about the shadow, and it's good. He's bringing this stuff back. But you're right, it is important to make friends with the tragedy, to make friends with even some of these you've had and I've had in my life, where it's like, what is the purpose of you? But it's just like, if not to serve as a bad example, but they also are a way to, it's like, I don't want to be that. I want to be
Mm.
this, and go toward, what you guys are doing, what I'm trying to do. And also, the world is in quite a state right now. So I don't think it's any coincidence that you're doing what you're doing, or, for example, that I'm doing what I'm doing, because it took me a long enough time to get this book out there, because it took that long to try to find the right timing and everything. But I think the time is now for these things.
So might be another star in this family's constellation, in the land of the midnight sun, searching for gold. I am my father's daughter, he has his mother's eyes. I am the product of her sacrifice. I am the accumulation of the dreams of generations, and their stories live in me like holy water. I am my father's daughter.
And I think that, Adam, when you talk about trauma being a kind of a catalyst, or an impetus to take you in a more healing direction.
Mm.
It actually is. And may I just share recently, just before this Middle East conflict blew up, I found myself, having very high fever, and it was like, where did this come from? And then, all kinds of symptoms that would be flu-like or whatever. And I'm still recovering. It's been over a month. But what happened? There's always a blessing in disguise. That's how I see it. If you're willing to go through the trauma, and this war and the Ukraine war triggered a huge kind of like an earthquake inside me, opening me up to more in-depth, experiences that have made themselves very comfortable. And that's what happens. If you are, have a busy life or you fall into distractions, but then something comes along and strikes such a true note. And what happened is, through the trauma of this recent uprising and the Russian, because my ancestry is from that region, these triggers have actually freed me, because with whatever awareness, with whatever physical debilitation that happens, that makes you, and we talk about this, if you don't volunteer stillness, something happens to cause you to be still, if it's time to process something internally. And Adam, the empathy was past the million meter. It was so high. The empathy for people, innocent people being killed, and death. That's part of this whole healing journey, is allowing yourself, to go through this shadow. In fact, to talk about Jung, it's imperative to face the shadows of all these different archetypes that we have. What does he say? Over 100. And allow yourself to go through it. But one of the most recent podcasts, I think, Adam, you were saying, how do you give yourself time? And in your busy life, running a department at a university, and
Wow.
and all of us doing what we need to do, but this is a time to seriously go in. And I love the idea, not even the idea, but just the, gosh, I'm not even sure how, it's like a spiritual thing that happens when you put pen to paper, and what comes through. Like you're saying, the voices from the past come through on the paper. And then, your story has specific details, but it's relatable. And
this is yours.
and and it's
Yeah.
kind of like when I lived in Hawaii, there was this principle. You could not get, you could not defy it. There's porches. Hawaiian people have porches, and they have chairs on their porches, and usually an ukulele standing by. And I am telling you, you cannot be too busy to stop and talk story.
I didn't know that.
I used to go to a post office to get my mail on the Big Island, and I'd go down to the post office and know that I'd have to invest at least an hour and a half.
Oh my God.
Because everybody has a story, and that's the beauty in it, is to take time to listen to that story, and then you relate.
And that's all family stories, isn't it? I mean, Natalie, when you talk about these family stories, I mean, obviously the one we're talking about has got its tragedy to it, but every family has these stories. And I think that genealogy work that you do, and Donna, what you're talking about that empathy for whether it's what we consider past lives or past generations or whoever else, that when we do engage with stories, I think that's an exercise in empathy, really. It melts away in many ways the particulars of the fact that people lived 100 years before us, because fundamentally relationships are similar. What people want is fundamentally the same, because we're all human, and so we can as much as possible try to enter into that perspective, I guess. Natalie, do you find that with your genealogy work?
Oh yeah, well, definitely. And I was thinking when it absolutely, it connects you. But Donna, there was something you said, and it was, I forget what exactly sentence you said, but I thought, did the writing for you, I mean, I know what this writing has done for me. Did writing and starting to share your memoir, did that change you at all? Did that change how you thought about your life? You talked about putting pen to paper. That's what it was. Did anything happen to you?
Well, obviously, a relationship blossomed, a collaboration between Dr. Adam and I. That was magic. No,
Magic.
who was orchestrating that one?
Yes, how did that all happen? Absolutely.
No.
And then so we're not strangers. It's just that it's kind of, the light has its course of action, and so 25, gosh, I can't remember, more than 20 years ago, Dr. Adam and I connected, and I, and I was just in a place, I guess, in my life, and that I knew I had to really go deep, and I think the pen to paper it's totally magic. I never know what's going to come through, unless I'm transcribing something, but there's just so much information coming in, and I really just have to say that, apparently the harmonic conversion in 1987 is when it began. And then the Mayan shift, the Mayan calendar in 2012, brought it to another peak. And now the starting of the Aquarian age is illuminating this amount of incredible divine light coming in. And, it's really amazing when you're receptive to it. And, and I know that, some people talk about, the Christ energy that's coming in, and that's been talked about through religion, but now energetically, since I really don't align with any kind of dogma, I'm just feeling the Christ energy, the true Christ energy so strongly that, what life is really all about and what life can be when we visualize it, when we are so convicted in our belief that, life can be beautiful. That's why we're here. And I'll just share one tiny little thing. I've got these windows in my living room, and when I moved to Arizona, I'm living somewhere that's just the antithesis of, being an ocean girl, and I'm like living in the heart of the desert and in the mountains. So the other day I'm looking out the window out to this whole mountain in front of me, and my husband and I counted 15 what they're called is Cudamunde. And Cudamunde is an animal that I just learned about that's from the raccoon family, and it looks like a lemur, but it's got this little pointy face, and it's got this big, flat, furry body and a very long tail. The whole thing is probably 4 feet long, and it's, really low to the ground. And 15 of them, baby, mama, papa size, just kind of, waddling up this mountain, which is about 1,000 feet from where I am, all the way up. And they're just following some trail that I'm sure that they followed for how many centuries, and it's like the wonder of life in places all over this planet that still exist. It's such a blessing. So, then, suddenly all the pieces, like, you put together about your family, and they're still unknown. And, and it's this incredible mystery. And I think, as you're telling your story, I'm thinking about, Robert Kennedy Jr. right now, who, has lived with the incredible trauma of witnessing his father's death and his uncle's assassination, and having to live with that when I was in Dallas and, was part of that assassination. I have never recovered. And
I believe it. Yeah.
And I think anyone that at that time and knows exactly where they were when it happened and how they feel, and they store that in their heart and in their memory.
Anybody here seen my old friend John? Can you tell me where he's gone? He freed a lot of people, but it seemed the good they die young. I just looked around and he's gone.
So the pencil to the paper, or the pen to the paper, and the magic of what that pen is. My favorite is a Mont Blanc. And
there's something about pen and paper versus computer. I mean, I like a computer for what you can edit and how you can move things around, but that actual physical act of writing is, there's psychotherapeutic sort of tools around that about expressive writing and the power of that. But it does remind me of this kind of idea of not only sharing stories to relate to people, to connect with people, but in sharing a story of our own story, we this is the whole point of this podcast, I think, is to understand things better. That ultimately, Donna, I think in you writing your story, it was as much to help people as it was to, I guess, and tell me if I'm wrong here, but to understand your own experiences so that you could continue to move forward. So the past is used as a tool to understand yourself, but to also move forward.
Well, right on. Because,
Yes.
hey, Professor, I completely, trusted you beyond, well, I wouldn't say beyond my current husband, but, it's like when okay, you put the pen to paper and maybe you're in a room. Is that how you do it, alone, Natalie?
Oh, no, actually, my my handwriting is so horrible that I do the computer thing, or I talk into an
Okay.
application because I'm slow, but
You
there
do it
is something
alone?
still. Oh, absolutely. I don't do any. This is not a communal thing. It has to be alone, and also too to just listen to what, like when I was introducing myself to some new dead people, when I was doing some research, I thought, okay, what do you guys want? Well, that's how I do it. It's like, dead people, who wants to come front and center, and who wants their story told. And I have to be quiet. I mean, I'm silly about it because it is kind of odd, but I thought I can usually get a feel. I don't know, Donna, Dr. Adam, there's a physical, I go right away, let me that one, this one. And then then the story unfolds, and then, but generally I type it out or I get out, and then when I walk and talk, then I come back and transcribe. Yeah.
And the tools that we have now, because when we started writing, it was a terrible internet connection, and it was very rudimentary, and now everything we've got to be able to get those stories out is quite amazing, really.
But really,
is.
I completely had such a different experience than you, Natalie. I mean, talking to dead people, absolutely. I understand that, spirits show up, and they're very tangible. But to collaborate with someone and, make your, open to that vulnerability, where I truly believe that it takes a different kind of an attitude, because it can be very painful. And,
Absolutely.
and so many of us, as we've spoken before, Adam, you don't really have the capacity to deal with the pain. And so you reach a point where it's like, you just avoid it, you push it down, it stays with you, and, and it can create disease and all kinds of discomfort. This was bubbling up and like a volcano, and it needed to come out, but it needed to come out in conversation. I wanted to share my life. And Adam was there, and Jared, my husband, both of them were there like bookends to support me in my journey through this emotionally. And it's, and this has been going on for years and years and years. It's so amazing to me. Like, people that are, gosh, they're quite young and they write their first memoir, if they're very young, successful people and they decide to write and they would have to write half a dozen memoirs because, they're going incrementally, every decade and writing about it. I waited until I was in my, swinging 60s. And, and that took 5 years of constant collaboration with Dr. Adam and with Jared.
Okay.
Yeah. 5 years and quite a few years before that, just unraveling things with my husband, over tea every morning. I mean, sometimes it would be half an hour and sometimes it would be 3 hours. You never know.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, and the outcome is beautiful. Just so you know, there's a way where both of you are so accessible, and you made me feel like I could do this too, which makes in some ways no sense because you are who you are. But I thought there is a way where you build bridges, and not everybody does that. And I think that's extraordinary, and it's again so uplifting, and not just gee, it makes me feel good, but gee, it makes me work, and I think that's a lot of it. It's working.
That's the new energy as well. It's an unspoken energy that's coming in. This energy of unity is coming in and tapping into our resources as this whole person and being able to express yourself. By the way, I think you're doing a beautiful job, and I love your sense of humor. So, how wonderful it is to be able to giggle, about these serious matters. But, yeah. And I think it would be so cool. I don't know if you're into, the throat chakra, but just to give yourself like talking to your ancestors, and calling on them. And, by the way, you remember, I think it's that story, Our Town.
Oh, yes, of course. We even did that
Mm.
show. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah.
Remember that? And
Mhm.
like, the people on Earth are doing all these stupid 3D mundane,
They are.
stuff. And, and then all
There you
these,
go.
and all these people in heaven are looking down, and they're, they got their hand, scratching their heads. It's like, when am I going to get it? And all this stuff. Well, and you talked about souls, and, and I wanted to refer to this, wonderful astrologer and intuitive healer called Robert Ohado. And he, I think he either did a seminar or he wrote about the empathetic soul. And these are all characteristics that, we come in with, but entering into Earth's atmosphere in the last several thousand years, going back to Aries epoch, I think it is. Now we're in the Aquarian. So like at least 5 or more thousand years ago, this energy, it came in and shrunk our, it's like condensed our sensibility, our senses, therefore constricting, our ability to intuit and to feel. And those who did got burned at the cross, or God knows,
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
all kinds of things, So now, all I can say is whenever I'm around anyone who, and I can absolutely love them, but when they come in with something that I feel is contrary to a vision for a future of the life that we want to co-create, that now I'm, before I probably even a year ago might hesitate, but now I'm like, hey, wait a minute,
Cool.
do not go there, not around me anyway,
There you go. Draw the line in the sand. You've got to
this is our opportunity to take what's being given and integrate it and put it out there. And then there is an equanimity. Then there isn't any superiority of anything. The rocks have souls. Everything has a soul.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
And your great aunt, okay.
Yeah.
She is a significant storyteller coming through you.
I agree with you. I totally agree.
And
And
so
whoever
beautiful.
you brought in too, Donna.
It's so
well,
beautiful.
Thank you. Yeah, just hearing you talk, it's like, I was wondering, since, I have Ashkenazi Jewish ancestry as well, but it's distant. And I think, I know we're all related because of endogamy, but I thought it's almost like you're one of my relatives, the fun ones. And it's really interesting. The way you're talking and everything, and Adam, I thought right away, I don't know. It's like, I don't say that to all the people because my personality is more like Wednesday Addams in some ways. People have said that. So it's just
great.
like, yeah, no, they said that. It's like, that reminds me of. I said, I know who that reminds you of. Yes, me. But when I really connect with people, it's sincere, and I feel like, wow, and it's exciting, and this has been like, I haven't been this nervous and excited to talk to anybody since forever. And it's really but it's wonderful. I think it's wonderful. And because of who you both are,
it's
separately
enlivening.
And together.
It's enlivening. And I'm so glad, it's like with the pandemic, yes, it caused so much strife, but in my own personal experience, and I think in a lot of people, it brought out this incredible surrender to the unknown, and then and then allowing spirit to come in and co-create with you. And that's exactly how it started with Dr. Adam and I to do this
Okay.
podcast
Okay.
because it's like,
Wow.
let's do something with what we've
Mhm.
worked on for many years and
Wow.
let it
Oh.
evolve. And by
Mhm.
the way, that's another enlightenment, I guess, that has come to me because a lot of people are talking about loneliness. That it's like being in your own little bubble, being in even in a massive situation, that the sense of community is really blossoming. And it's coming through the airwaves like the old radio days when Roosevelt,
Oh yes. Oh yes. Yes.
would
Yes.
have
Yes.
his fireside chats. And
Mhm.
and then the listening, it's like something's going on with the power of the sun and whatever planetary positions it's improving our ability to hear and be receptive and listen, take stories in, process them, relate and have the sense of community and be wherever we are. It doesn't matter where we are, because
No,
we
it
are
doesn't.
all one.
We really are all one. Yeah. No, this is good.
It's maybe why podcasts have become so. I mean, the
Yes.
accessibility is wonderful, but I think people
Mhm.
have really needed it, as you said, Donna, because we needed to connect. That was the thing that ultimately, when everything was stripped away during the pandemic, and some people, of course, had it a lot worse than many of us, and so on. So, but to this idea that I think so many of us, for the first time, had to sort of tolerate uncertainty, and as humans, we don't often like that.
Wow.
But realizing ultimately, what we value, that, life does, and this is sort of a therapeutic bent, I guess, but this idea that life does often involve pain and can involve suffering and so on, but keeping in mind and committing to living life in line with what you value and what is important to you. And I think in many ways that kind of heightened that. I think in day-to-day life, we often don't have to think about those things. We're doing. And many of us had to stop. And then all of a sudden it was like, well, what does this all mean? And what do I want to do? And, we saw so many people quit jobs, and it wasn't necessarily to go to a better job, but it might have been going sideways because they wanted somewhere that aligned more with their values and what was important to them, or, spending time with family, or, ultimately, what do we value? And I think for us, it was very much around connection. And so that was a really important thing.
It's so beautiful. And, and then this whole concept, it's interesting that when I moved to the Big Island in 1995, I moved to this little tiny town with 3,500 people. I had never lived in such a remote location. And so it was just in kind of in the beginning of internet. And so Jared he's much more tech than I am. But I just didn't want to feel cut off from the world, like some people want to go live on an island and get away from it all and forget about whatever's happening. But I didn't want to do that. And so he started my, Facebook.
Oh, yay. Okay,
Yeah,
cool. Go, Jared.
When we had the opportunity to incorporate some of the people that I've never met, but sometimes I've communicated with, and the idea of getting to know different individuals, Adam, wouldn't you, corroborate with me, is like everybody has a very valuable story to tell. And, I'm just as interested in your story, as telling my own. And so it really enriches my life to have relationships beyond, how it began. And so I really value, this little technological way of connecting, just feeling closer, not feeling, like feeling, I've, just like you said, suddenly you feel like family. And it's such a warm and cozy feeling. And boy, I think it's a good exercise to go out in your community and see how much eye contact you make.
Absolutely true.
And see what kind of, if people are willing to look you in the eye, not, in a forceful way, just,
Donna, this is Minnesota. You got to be careful doing that here. You just kind of look up and down real quick. You know, you gotta.
It's
Like
just,
Fargo. Well, yeah, you know.
it's too cold. Well, listen, my son.
It's too cold. Yes.
My son went to school at what's it called now? Oh, he was in St. Paul.
Oh, really?
Yeah, for
You were there?
5 years at the Liberal Arts College.
McAllister. That's just a couple blocks from where we live.
Oh, well, the Mississippi River is right there.
Yes, ma'am.
And
Yes,
that
ma'am.
beautiful island down the middle of that main road with all the gorgeous trees. Oh, I'm very.
That's our neighborhood. Yeah, yeah.
Well, one year.
How about that?
I know one year I visited my son in the fall because I wanted to see the trees. Of course, I wanted to see him, but I took my boots off and I thought, oh, the sun's shining. It's 80 degrees. I'm going to walk on the grass barefoot. Oh no, it's freezing.
Did we learn something there, Donna? Yeah, death could ensue from this place. You got to be careful because it's just like, oh wow, that's incredible.
Well, his skin. I'm not kidding.
Come visit sometime.
I don't know if I'm going to be traveling much these days. I was supposed to go to Adam's wedding in Australia, and it's just
congratulations.
Yes.
Thank you very much. It's coming up almost a year. Thank you.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
Well,
we've still got there's wedding cake. There's the top of the wedding cake, the fruit cake in the freezer,
waiting.
Wow! You keep that, and we'll see how it's kept over a year. Yeah.
That's right. That's right. That's the tradition. Well, it was so daunting. You know, I was going to do it. And then Jared, my husband, was like, you can't do it. Too many hours on a plane and airports and there be delays. And then he just knows how I am. And he said, you know, you're just going to be a wreck. And, you know, and I don't know how you're going to travel. So we haven't traveled.
That's okay. That's okay too.
Quite a few years. I would look forward to beginning that process. Haven't been to an airport in very long time.
No, same here. Yeah, out of necessity too. But yeah, we have too much going on here. So yeah, it's fine.
So who's we? Who's we where you are?
Oh, my partner is actually, her family's from Calabria, Adam.
Oh my goodness, yes.
Oh yeah.
There's our connection.
It's one of those families, yes.
My family is Calabrian.
What? Okay, Mangon, Cosenza.
We are from. I know exactly where that is. We are from Reggio and Catanzaro.
Okay.
And you must tell her to read. There's a book. I don't know if she's come across it called "The 7 or 8 Deaths of Stella Fortuna." It's kind of it's a family saga as well, but it's a family saga set in Calabria. So yes, and it's all about all the stuff she'd understand, like all the. Donna, I think we've spoken about this, the malocchio, which is like the evil eye.
I knew you were going to say that. Believe me, I knew. No, she went. Yeah, and I was thinking of Donna's one episode where her mother cast the eye in her direction. I thought, oh my God, it's malocchio, and I have those bracelets that I wear because of this Italian thing I've got going here. You know,
yes,
Italian Eastern European thing.
Yeah,
yes.
There's a Donna. There's a. Either you can wear a bracelet or a necklace that's got what looks like a bull's horn, so it almost looks
I've got a little tiny eye, and you know, and you do the tap, you know, I'm honorary Italian. We love our Italians.
So okay, well, you did the cha-cha-cha. I've been doing the cha-cha for a long time. 1 step back and 2 steps forward. Fortunately, the energy has really. You know, I don't know what's going on here, but there's like a vortex of energy that's kind of insists upon letting go. And as I say, you know, these experiences that you know, I'm going to bring it up again. You know, I think that this, well, it's not me, but I agree with those that say that generally the population of this planet is suffering from immaturity, and and so immaturity to me is, you know, falling back into blame and not taking responsibility, and you know, and baby, we have to adult up, you know, so that we can be, you know, all who we really are, and you know, and embody that. So.
And how did you two meet, Natalie? How did your Calabrian?
The Calabrian. Well, you know, It's the perfect, and she is a well-known, incredible artist who's done like massive sculptures and all sorts of just incredible things. And she's now a podcaster herself, but she's got kind of a, I mean, she's good. She really is good, but Italian, you know, she also reminded me, what do you think? You know, but she's
too bad podcast we can't see us moving with our hands, because that's all we do as Italians.
Well, she's like, she does hers, you know, with video, which I just, you know, I just have to put a camera up here. But since I'm generally just talking to myself with, you know, there aren't that many people who are alive that I, you know, can really talk to about this, but I've had a few. But she interviews somebody, but she's doing like a storm chaser. She did one of our friends' sisters who passed away. She was a Hennepin County court judge, and she changed family law, and she kept practicing with all these brain tumors and everything else, and she kept being joyful and doing all this stuff and putting good into the world. And so we just did, you know, she just did his book, and so she gets some fascinating people. And she's actually, you know, she's Italian, Adam, so she's fascinating. And it balances out my Eastern European stuff. She said, "Oh, we're not going to have that cabbage in this house. No, put that sauerkraut away." So it's just like, I am forbidden to have I grew up with this food. So my pickles and my sauerkraut have to sit in the studio and do stuff. But she's an incredible person. And we've been together for over 25 years. And of course, obviously, one of the reasons why I had to kind of separate from my family was because they didn't treat me so well early on. And I thought, I deserve better. Okay. You know, and so that was a lot of it. So to have somebody from my bloodline kind of reach out from the dead and just say, "Hey, kid, you belong with me. We're good."
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
See? Yeah. The dead care.
That's okay.
Yep.
So
that's okay. You have evolved. You have definitely evolved. And
thanks, Donna.
Congratulations, my love. And yes, if I'm ever up your way, I will. And if you're ever down our way, for goodness sake, if you need to get out of the cold, let me know.
And well, no, we're used to suffering, but I would love to. And
that sounds very.
I have enough of my mother's Lutheran stuff too. So it's like, we don't deserve anything anyway. It's just like it's gonna be dead anyway.
I no complain.
Yes. So no, it's been you guys are lovely. It's and
wonderful.
So I'm glad to meet
with you.
Oh well, you know what? Thanks for the generosity. I still can't believe I'm talking to the girl who can actually sing. I mean, it's just like wow.
Well,
you guys are beautiful.
We are sending you tons and tons of love and to
back
you
at you
and to your darling. And we just, you know, let's just form a universal heart from Adelaide to St. Paul down here to Bisbee. And
is that where you are? Okay.
Seal with a big kiss.
Big kiss right back to you both. You can stay healthy, both of you, okay?
Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for the invitation. You guys are the best. Thank you.
Lots of love, darling.
Know you is to love you. Just to see you smile makes my life worthwhile. To know you is to love you. And I do. Yes, I do. Why can't you see how blind can you be? Someday you'll see that you were meant for me. To know you is to love you. Just to see you smile makes my life worthwhile. To know you is to love you. I do. Yes, I do. Yes, love.